Hello, this is my inner world recording for Tuesday. And this is great because I'm answering real life questions from people who have written into me. So I'm going to just treat this like a question and answer without me planning it all in advance. So we'll see what happens. So this first question was from somebody who's saying, in your years of practice, are you seeing a difference in females who have been diagnosed earlier in the way they view themselves? Is there less negative self-talk and more self-compassion, or is that not the case? Yes, you really hit on something here. It makes a huge difference. That's why getting diagnosed early, getting identified early, as well as having somebody supportive around you, not just to say you have ADHD, but what does that mean? How to make your life work for you, helping you see yourself as separate from your challenges. All those things can happen, though, when you understand your experience. Otherwise, when you don't know why you're having such difficulty and then having success in other areas, you have such a difficult time putting together a cohesive self-image. So you're either good or bad. You don't have just that stable sense of self where it's not dependent on, that you're doing something difficult or you're doing something easy for yourself. You are who you are. So you need the diagnosis, you need medication often, you need support, accommodations, you need that person, that voice inside of you growing up so that you can have that as you get older and start advocating for yourself and start having that narrative about yourself that's a positive and that's whole. So you see you have difficulties, you have challenges, but that's not who you are. So that's a huge difference, getting diagnosed early and getting those supportive experiences and learning how to make good choices for yourself too. Because if you know it's difficult, you'll pick the right college or you'll pick the right job, you pick the right partner. But without that, you're just sort of flailing around. You don't understand. So it's much easier now. That's not to say that getting diagnosed later is can't correct all that. It can, but it's just a little bit more hard work. You do have the more negative self-talk because you're misinterpreting things. You've been misinterpreted too. You've been misunderstood. So you've just internalized a negative view of yourself, which only sees the difficulties and leaves out the whole other part of yourself. And you haven't learned to have that self-compassion and to focus on what you're good at. And so, yes, the short answer is yes. Getting diagnosed early is very important, but getting diagnosed later is often full of wonderful possibilities. So thank you for that question. And the next question was sort of in that same vein, but it was again about late diagnosed women and low self-esteem. So that's sort of the theme of this today, that inner world. You can have medication, you can have coaching, you can make things neater, you can make things work for yourself, you can figure out systems, but that internal sense of yourself is what's so important, what's so difficult. And she says, importantly, that, of course, we're all telling you to build up your self-esteem, but she was saying, which is true, that's easier said than done. So she wants to know, what advice do I have for people who are struggling to build self-esteem after years and years of doing things wrong, making mistakes, leaving jobs, struggling with projects, and failing at things that are easy for others? How does one erase all those neural pathways of negative self-talk and believe they're deeply imprinted in our brains about ourselves when it doesn't feel very good or competent at things, even basic things? For example, she says she's a bright person. She's graduated from college. She's had businesses of her own, but it took me 3 times to make a chicken dish because I could not follow the recipe correctly. Well, this is the deal, that I can't do those things either. Many of my colleagues, who you all know are very bright, competent women, wonderful people that you like to read and hear from, many of them have the same kind of difficulties you're talking about. So the measure can't be, are you able to do these tasks that neurotypical people can do easily? Because they're certainly not able to think the way you can, and not, I'm sure, able to do the wonderful things that you've been able to do, or the wonderful thoughts you've been able to think. Or I'm sure they don't have always the same sensitivity or warmth or compassion or humor, or whatever it is that makes you special. So part of this radical acceptance I always talk about is, yes, it's true. We're probably never going to, well, unless we really want to and really work at it, we're probably not going to naturally be as good at these skills as other people. And it's very difficult. It takes a long time. And the only way out is to really try to erase, try to rebalance this thing. So you're not spending all your time trying to get better at the things you're not good at, or most of your energy is going into doing things you're good at, doing things you love, doing things that make you feel alive. Then on the balance, you'll be able to say, yeah, look at everything I did today and look at everything I have difficulty with. But the only way to fill up that other side of those old fashioned scales, I always say to rebalance them, is fill up the good stuff. And then it'll sort of balance out. But you just can't spend all your energy trying to do things you're not good at. Those are difficult things. They've been very difficult for me my whole life. And for a long time, I struggled with that because I was comparing myself to neurotypical women, especially when I didn't know why they were all having such an easy time with it. So you need to get enough support, and or else change how you're measuring yourself and focus more of your time on things that will let you build up that new self-concept. So that's my inner world for today. I'd love to hear from you, especially for people who have experiencing these same things about a late diagnosis and how that's affected the way you view yourself and how difficult it is when you can't do things as easily as other people. It's like a topsy-turvy world. The things you're good at and other people aren't good at, and things, they're good at, you're just not going to be as good at. That's why you have to have that whole picture of yourself. I'm good at these things. I'm not so good at these things. But for women, often they've internalized that as a measure for themselves. And that's what we have to reverse by talking to each other. Okay. Thank you.